What's going on, everybody? Frankie from Mirth Films here, and today we're talking about lenses. We're talking about the Canon EF 24-70mm f2.8 version 2 L lens. So let's jump right into it. So currently I'm shooting on mirrorless cameras, specifically the Canon R5, and I needed an f2.8 version of a 24-70. Couldn't yet afford the 24-70 RF version, so that's why I decided to get the 24-70 EF version, and version 2 specifically because it's a little sharper than the first version of it. It's built really nice. The Canon EF 24-70 f2.8L version 2 USM has 18 elements and 13 groups. It has a minimum focus distance of roughly 1.25 feet and has a filter size of 82 millimeters. The aperture range starts from f2.8 and goes all the way to f22. And the reason why it's really important to have a lens like this is because it's not a variable aperture lens. So from 24 to 70, you're able to access that f2.8 aperture, and that's why you're spending all the money on this L lens. And L lenses that Canon make are the highest quality lenses that you can buy for full frame cameras. Now talking ergonomics and features. First off, this lens is weather sealed, so don't be afraid to use it if it's raining, snowing, whatever the situation may be. Obviously take care of your gear, but you do have some leeway since this is weather sealed. It also has an autofocus and manual focus switch. Another cool thing about this lens is it has a lock switch as well. So if you don't want to worry about having your lens extend out to 70, if you're carrying it on the side of your body, you can actually lock it right at 24 millimeters and it won't move at all. The rings are also nice and smooth as well. It doesn't feel like I have to put a lot of effort when I am extending that out to 70, but there is some resistance, which is nice. And if I hold the lens upside down, it actually doesn't lens creep. So if you don't remember to put on that lock switch, don't worry. As long as you take care of your gear, you'll be fine. Now it's time to talk about the pros and cons when it comes to this lens. And I got a few pros and some cons, but overall, this is a great lens to buy, and I highly recommend that you purchase it if you are stuck at that 24-105 f4 aperture. The first pro that I need to talk about is that the autofocus is snappy. Either when I'm using this lens on the Canon R5 or my Canon 5D Mark III, I'm never really having autofocus issues. So that is something that's great. And because it has USM motors, it actually focuses very silently. So let's say you're using autofocus and you also have to capture audio via a shotgun mic on your camera, you don't have to worry about picking that up. What I really love is knowing that when I'm in the concert photography pit, I'm always going to get tack sharp focus. It's going to be snappy, and especially with Canon R5's eye autofocus capabilities, I can access that. You're going to get higher quality photos and that background blur, which brings me to point number 2. Is that f2.8 aperture. Whether you're shooting weddings, low light scenarios, portraits in general, and you don't have a prime lens or want that variable range from 24 to 70, getting that f2.8 capability is great, especially if you're going really close to somebody and compressing that background. That background blur is going to be beautiful. You're going to expect a lot of bokeh at f2.8, so that is something that I really like. My last pro to talk about is that this is a great run and gun lens. While you're not getting the full 24-105, that 24-70 is still great for range. And especially if you're an event photographer, wedding photographer, videographer, whatever it may be, this is a good focal length to have on you at all times. Now it's time to talk about the cons, and unfortunately there's a big one, and that is image stabilization. There is actually no image stabilization within this lens. So if you are using a DSLR body, you are not going to have any image stabilization. So that means you're going to either have to shoot at a higher shutter speed or just be very careful about making sure that you're not getting any camera shake and being completely still. That kind of sucks. Personally, that's why if you were to have more money for your budget, I would get the RF version. But that being said, it is something that I'm willing to sacrifice for that f2.8 aperture at a lower price point because my Canon R5 does have built-in in-body stabilization. So if you're shooting the Canon R5, R6, R6 Mark II, you really don't have anything to worry about. It's just really everything else. And my last con to talk about is that this lens is on the heavy side. So if you are somebody that is a videographer, wants to use this for videography, and your gimbal doesn't support a lot of weight, then you might be in trouble. So just keep that in mind. Also, if you're carrying around a camera all day, or you're using a mirrorless camera that is actually pretty light, then this might be front heavy on your camera. So that's just something that you got to think about. It's not, again, the heaviest lens. It's not as heavy as a Canon EF 70-200 that's built like a tank. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just not used to this heaviness of a lens at this focal range, but that is something that I do have to bring up. Now, who is this lens for? If you're just starting to shoot photography, I would stay away from this lens and practice your skills and focus on using the lenses that you already have. And then when you're ready to grow out of it, look at something like the Canon EF 24-70 version 2 f2.8 if that's what you want to go with. But I would really recommend this to intermediate to advanced users, people who know what they're looking for. So if you're a portrait photographer, wedding photographer, event, concert photographer, or videographer, whatever it may be, you're gonna get that f2.8 aperture, and it's gonna be totally worth it, especially if you're on a budget and you can't afford the RF version, or if you just want to get out of that f4 range. This is the perfect lens for you. So I highly recommend the Canon 24-70 EF version 2 f2.8 because it's something I've had a great experience with, and I wouldn't recommend a product that I wouldn't use. I've had a wonderful experience using this lens already, and I can't wait to continue using this because I've only had it for a few months now, and now it's time to get down and dirty with this lens. So I'm gonna end this video right here. My name is Frank Cavone of Mirth Films, and thank you so much for watching this video.